Today we have a 2016 Ford Escape 2-liter engine, and we're going to be doing a front and a rear brake job on here. Now, as you can see, I have the car, it's on jack stands. I already have the wheels off, and we're walking around, and you can see that the other side of, as far as the wheels, they're off too. Now, underneath the where you see the jack stands, there are some slots underneath, and that's what I opted to do. And let me just show you where they're located. Now, here's up on the front side, right behind the, I'm on the left side of the car. So you can see there's a rectangular slot, and I just went ahead and just got the jack stand up located up under there. And also you'll see the same slot, that's back at the rear, and also of course on the other side of the car. Now, the jack stands that I'm using is from Napa. This is Avocraft, they're 3-ton jack stands, and you can see the part number is 776-2001. Now, there's one thing I want to point out about the jack stands. This particular jack stand is also from Napa, and as you can see, it's got a different part number, but you can see that it's a 3-ton jack, just like the ones that's under the car now. However, the jaw up here on this particular jack is much wider. It's probably about an inch wider than the length of those slots that's under the car. So I could not use these jack stands. So that's why I'm using those particular ones and pointing out the differences in the jaws. So be sure that if you want to support the car all up around and using those jack slots there to put your jack stands in, be sure to check the dimensions of your jack jaw, so to be sure to fit in there. Now, in this job, we have to push pistons back in the calipers, so that means that this here brake fluid is going to rise up in the reservoir. So I just want to take a look, just see what kind of level we got in there. Yeah, so it's down a little bit, so I'm not going to worry about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of leave this loose, so any kind of pressure that comes in there, I have a way to vent. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is I'm on the left front assembly up here. So what I'm looking at is we got this spring clip, this anti-rattle clip, and so we need to get it out of there. Now that I can see how the clips are in there, we need to push it back, and I'll show you what I'm talking about once we get this thing out. Yeah. Alright, so if we take a look at the clip, this part right here digs up underneath. So basically you have to push the clip over to the side so it can clear that little nub right there. Once you clear it over to the side, then it can easily pop right out. Now that we got the clip off, I want to take and see if we can just turn the rotor assembly here. So we can get to the back of this here caliper. Now, the next step is there are 2 plastic plugs. One is here, and then there's one down underneath. Now, so we're going to just take a screwdriver. We're going to wedge it in there a little bit. We're just going to wedge it and pop it on out. Alright, and that's what he looks like. And I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom. Now, where those plastic covers came out, there is a socket head bolt in there. Now, this is going to be a hex bit, and it's a 7mm. So I'm just going to put that in there, and we're going to break it loose. And now we also have one right directly beneath there, which where the cap was at. So let me go down here, and we'll go ahead and we'll break him loose. Alright, so I'm going to be screwing these out, and I'll catch you in the next shot once I get them out. Now, once you see that the bolt is unscrewed here from the bracket, Then what we can do to get the bolt out is we're going to come right in here with a screwdriver, and you can see this little boss that's here on this on the bolt, and I'm just going to push it in so you can see it pushes out over here. Then we're going to get in right behind the bolt, and then we're just going to pull it straight out, and that's what he looks like. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing for the bolt on the bottom. And here's the bolt that came out from the bottom, and it's exactly like the one on the top. Okay, now at this point the caliper should be able to just come right off, and these pads are a little bit worn, so they should slide off of there pretty easily. Well, at least they should anyway. Okay. So there is that, and I'm just going to set it up here for right now. Okay, now that I got the caliper set out, this is going to be an outboard pad, so we're just going to lift it right out, and that's how he was in there. Then we have the inboard pad, which connects into the piston. So on that one we just pull it straight out. And then you can see that it has these clips here, which goes inside the piston. Now I'm going to be removing the bracket here, because we're going to be replacing the disc. Alright, so it's two bolts. One is here, one is there. 18mm socket will take care of that. And I'm just going to use a pull handle just to break it loose. That's going to be like 129 foot-pounds of torque, so it might be a little bit snug. There we go. And let's get this one up here on the top, and I'll probably come back here with a impact wrench and I'll just whip them off. It is definitely snug. And as you notice, I don't know if you can see it, I can't see the viewfinder, but there is Loctite, blue Loctite on there. So we'll be putting blue Loctite when we reinstall these bolts. Now that we got our two bolts out, and that's what it looks like. Now at this point the rotor ideally should just slip right off of there, but mine is seem to be seized on there. I have some rust. So right in here there's a blank area where we don't have the backing plate, so I'm just going to hit on the back of the rotor, see if we can free this thing up. Okay, with a few hits here, and then I was turning it and hitting it, turning it, hitting it. So I think we got it off of there now. So let's just slide this thing off. Alright, we need to push this piston back in to give us some clearance with the new brake pads so that they can slide back over the rotor. So to do that, I'm going to use the old brake pad with the clip, and I'm going to just snap them back inside the piston. Now, I'm just going to use a C-clamp, and they have dedicated tools for this, but in this case I'm just going to make it simple. And now we're slowly going to turn it clockwise, and we want this piston, you know, we're pushing it back in. So we're going to push it in until it goes all the way back. And then when it bottoms out, that's where we'll stop. Yep, looking good. Just a little bit more to go. And that's where it bottoms out. So now we're going to just take the C-clamp off, and then we'll just take our brake pad back out. and you can see the piston is back in place. Alright, let's talk about cleaning up things here. If we look at the caliper, there's an area right in here that you want to clean up. One of your lugs on your pad is going to be sitting on there, and you're going to have the same thing over on this side, so you want to clean that up also. And also your outboard pad is going to be sitting flat up against here, so you want to make sure that that surface is clean all the way across. Now you want to be sure that your hub is clean, so I went ahead and cleaned it. Got all the rust off, most of it, and also you want to come around here, you want to clean as much of this rust off as you can here. Let's take a look at the bracket. The bracket is going on just like that. Now we're going to get the inboard pad, we're going to set them down in there so you can see the areas that has to be cleaned. If you look right in here, you can see that it rides across this ledge, and you can also see that this area in here is riding up in here. So you want to clean this, that, same over here, that, and inside here, because this is going to be moving back and forth. Also, if we look at the outboard pad and we set him in there, we can see where he's going to sit. So again, we want the same thing to be clean. We want to clean that, clean on the inside, that side wall down in here, and on this side wall here. Now for all of this cleaning, I use an air tool, and I just use a 3M Roll-Lock disc pad here to do the sanding. Now what I couldn't get into with this tool is I just came back with some 100 grit sandpaper, and I did the cleaning with that. Alright, for the front rotors, all of this I got as a kit. It came from Advanced Auto Parts, and here is the part number if anyone is interested. And this one here, it's already painted up for us, and it looks pretty good. And also for reference, the front pads, which is also, like I said, is from Advanced Auto Parts. Here's the part number for it. This is what they consider their gold line. And everything, this is the front rotors, front pads, and also I'm going to do the rear brakes, and that includes the rotors and the pads also, so the total price is around $338. Okay, now the rotor has some packing grease on it, so I've already sprayed it down on both sides and with brake cleaner, and also, just wiped it down. Now to slow down the rust on this hub a little bit, I'm just going to spray it down with some fluid film. Anything will work, any kind of grease that you want to put on there, that will work also. And now it's just a matter, let's go ahead and slide this on. And I've already checked to make sure this looks just like the original, and it does. When when you put this on, it's going to be a little floppy, so to stabilize it, when we get the bracket and the caliper and everything on, I'm going to get a lug nut, and I've just got a 1/2-inch EMT connector, the part of it. You could use a nut, a spacer, or anything. So I'm just going to put that over there. Of course, this is all, just temporary to hold the rotor in place. And there you go. So that stabilized it. I'm going to mount this bracket on there now. And I'm going to use some blue Loctite on each one of the bolts. And it should be enough. And now it's going to go on just like that. So that's one of them started. Alright, let's get the other one started. Alright, and now we got to torque them up to 129 pounds per foot. Alright, 129 pounds per foot. That's one. Let's do the top one. Alright, that's done. This is just showing the difference in thickness on the pads. So this is a new one, this is the used one. So it's probably about halfway worn. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm going to be using 3M silicone paste for the entire job here. Okay. Now those little spots that I told you about on the caliper, we're going to put a little bit right there. And then we're going to put a little bit over here. Okay. And then we're going back to our pad, and I'm just going to put a little bit all the way around here. This is where the piston is going to be resting up on, so this kind of minimize any kind of noise. Put a little bit on the spring clip, make it a little bit easier to go in, and also hopefully eliminate any kind of noise there. Alright, so now we're going to stick him inside the piston. I'm squeezing in the clips a little bit. Alright, so now he's in there. Now on the outboard pad, right where it's going to be resting, I'm just going to put a little bit up inside here where it's going to be resting up on there. Again, it's kind of lubricate it, keep it from rusting, slow it down, and also it's going to minimize any kind of noise, because we do have kind of like middle to middle. And now we're going to take him and we're going to set him in there, and we want to make sure that our ears from our pad is resting directly right down on the seated down there on both sides, and that looks pretty good to me. Now we're going to flip them over. And then we're going to just see if we can get this thing to go up in there. Alright. Now, one other thing that I just almost forgot to do is, let's put a little bit of silicone grease right on these here places that we cleaned off earlier. So I'm going to put a little bit up there where it's going to ride in, a little bit down here, a little bit on the back side, and some back over here on the top. And now let's go ahead and try to get this here caliper in place. Okay, let's see if he'll stay there. Alright, now we're going to get our caliper pins, and we're going to clean it up a little bit. You can see it got a little bit of tarnish there, so I'm just going to take some brake clean it up real good, and then I'll catch you in the next shot. Alright, so I got this all cleaned up pretty good. Now here's the rubber boots. This is where the caliper pins is going to slide in, and it looks like it's a little bit dry in there, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that silicone grease, and I'm just going to kind of stick some up in there. Try to pack it in there if I can. And of course I'm going to do the same thing for the one that's on the bottom. Little rubber boot down here at the bottom. Alright. And going back to our caliper pins, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put a little bit of silicone grease on that. Alright, and then we're going to take him and we're going to stick him. Ooh, it's slippery now. And then we're going to stick him up in there. Alright, now I'm going to get a 7mm hex bit, and I'm just going to screw that in a few threads. I'm just taking that 7mm hex bit and I'm just screwing it in a few threads. Alright, now let's get the other caliper pin. We're going to do the exact same thing. Got to put a little bit of grease on it. And we're going to get him started. Taking the 7mm hex bit and just kind of screwing it in by hand. I'm going to get the thread started first. Alright, now we're going to tighten it up to 21 pounds per foot. As I mentioned, this is 21 pounds per foot. So I'm using an inch pounds here for a torque wrench. If I take 21 times 12, which will convert pounds per foot to inch pounds, that will give me 252 inch pounds that I need for this. But in my case, I had this, the max on this is 250 inch pounds, you know, for the torque wrench. So that's close enough. So that's what I'm going to do, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to torque this thing up. So it's not a lot of torque on this thing. Now it looks like I need an extension on this because of the brake line. So let me go ahead and put an extension on here. And there we go. Now if you get these socket head bolts tightened up, then you take your plastic caps and just stick them in there. Just push them straight in. One on the top, one on the bottom. Okay, so we got some new brake clips, so we're just going to go ahead and use that. Now what we want to do is we want to put this here on the outside of here, drop it into this hole, and then we're going to be pushing this over to this side right there. Okay, and then you want to make sure that these little round, this round part here is going to snap in and go up inside there. So now I'm going to get a screwdriver. I want to make sure that that joker is in there, and he looks like he's in there pretty good. Okay. Yep. Okay, I am happy with that. That looks good to me. Okay, now we'll complete. Once you get this side complete, then you go over to the other side and do exactly the same thing. It's no different. Now once you get that side done, if you're just doing the front brakes, then you could go inside the car, pump up the brake before you start the engine. Make sure you got a good pedal. Then you can start the car up, put your wheels on, and then you can take it out for a little test drive. But now in my case, I'm also going to be doing the rear. So I'll do that in the next video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Appreciate you guys, and you take care.